Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new friend, Luke W. Henderson. We're here to break down Sparks Volume 1 and everything in between, and like all mini sparks leading to a great passionate flame. All those sparks start, somewhere. Luke, give us a little bit about who you are and how you became an indie comic creator.
Yeah, so as a kid, I wasn't super into comics. I read a little bit of manga. I had a subscription for Shonen Jump for a little bit, and my dad let me check out his whole collection, but just nothing really stuck. I actually didn't really get into comics until 2018. I was just kind of having a rough month. I was really feeling nostalgic for something I read in school, and that book was Mouse by Art Spiegelman. So I got a copy of that from a thrift store, started reading again, and I just kind of wanted to read more comics because I've been curious about it. I loved the Marvel movies that had been coming out for the last couple decades, but just never really read the books. And then what really kind of kicked it off was the YouTube channel Wisecrack had a video on Alan Moore and his Hermeticism, and I was just really curious about that. So I picked up a copy of The Killing Joke and one volume of Promethea. I read those, and it's kind of the rest is history. Fell in love with it.
The Killing Joke really was like its own different like branch into comics, right? Like I was so used to like happy-go-lucky like stories, and then you get to The Killing Joke and it's like, holy crap.
Right. I mean, my experience with comics just from reading manga most of the time was, it was, pretty well lighthearted adventure, plenty of action, but that one really dug deep into just, what makes Batman and like why he and the Joker might be mirrors of each other. So it was just a really different experience. And it just led me to reading more comics, eventually reviewing comics for Comic Book Yeti. And then eventually I just kind of wanted to start writing my own because there was creators who were doing good work that inspired me.
So what type of manga did you start out with? I tried to, when I was younger, get into it. I really didn't get past Dragon Ball and Naruto.
My favorite as a kid was One Piece. I loved it. I was just, really into pirates, and I liked the idea of having these, like, devil fruits that gave you powers. I even made my own fruit as a kid called the Zip Zip fruit that gave super speed.
I love that, man. I love that so much. I remember being younger and designing Pokemon cards. So I would take Pokemon, combine them, like Poliwhirl and Sandshrew, and make it like a Pokemon. And that, like, so I love the creativity that we had as children. When you started diving into your own stories and storytelling, what was the first book you came out with?
So my first official published comic was in a tribute zine to Nosferatu called Orlok Lives. It was a 3-pager with artist Jack Fantome, and that one was just kind of it was kind of my own reaction to the movie because prior to that zine I had never seen Nosferatu, but I knew I wanted to try to submit something. So I watched it, and one of the things I noticed was that the woman character in this horror movie actually has a lot of agency, and she's actually the one that kills the monster, which I was just not used to in horror movies. Women are basically props half the time. So that's kind of what the comic was about. It was a story that kind of explored how, I think her name's Elizabeth in that movie, has her own agency, and she destroys the monster, and then there's a twist where I deviate from the movie.
That is really interesting, too. That you started with something like that. It seems like such a complex idea for 3 pages.
Yeah, I think I squeezed more in there than I probably had room for, but I knew I wanted to be a short comic because I figured a short comic would be more likely to get in. And Jack just knocked it out of the park too with the art because like it begins kind of with just walking through the house to the bedroom where the woman is, and just she's seeing little hints of Nosferatu along the way, and then all the action's basically in the last 3 panels.
And I really love a slow burn like that, right? Like where you're relying a lot on like the story building, the ambience, and then like it all goes to hell in the last like couple of panels or even pages. What led you to the next? Did you start out with a lot of anthologies to begin with, or where did you all lead with after this?
Yeah, basically anthology submissions. I should also mention too, I guess technically my first was writing for the Comic Jam. That group that writes 1-page comics has a theme every week. So I guess technically that was my first, but definitely my first book was The Orlok Lives. But yeah, after that, just continuing writing for the Comic Jam and submitting to anthologies. My next one was Corrupting the Youth, which got kickstarted in September. That was a collection of stories that were basically like cute children's stories, but with questionable morals. Mine was about a kid who the tooth fairy forgot him, and he woke up this morning, threw up his pillow, and the tooth is still there. And so he goes to ask his friends for advice, and they tell him, well, when my parents feel like something's not going their way, they write a complaint letter. So he writes a complaint letter to the Tooth Fairy and has his parents read it, and obviously his parents are horrified.
I've been on that other end of the shoe where my child's lost a tooth. It's late at night. I'm like, I'll get to it. I wake up. She's like, Tooth Fairy didn't come. I'm like, are you sure? Like, run upstairs, hurry up, put the money on the pillow. I'm like, are you sure? Like, did you double check? I think it might have fell behind the bed. And this was a jump up for you too. Instead of it being 3 pages, you were at 6 pages. Like, how was that journey for you? Kind of like doubling what you were used to working with.
It was definitely, I had to think a lot more about the pacing, especially because when I originally prepared the pitch, it was supposed to be a 2-page comic, but then I reread the guidelines and said all comics had to be 6. I was like, oh. So I suddenly had to expand it to 3 times the pages. And that's when because originally the story just was 2 pages, was basically just about the kid. 1 page was him getting forgotten. The next page was him going back to sleep, and then having the big reveal at the end. And the joke, basically. So that was where the part about the complaint letter and him talking to his friends at school kind of came up. And I was like, okay, because it needs to be something more questionable than just like, oh, the Tooth Fairy forgot me. And that's where I was like, okay, well, what would my friends say at that age? Like, if they said I got forgotten, they're like, well, you should tell him, that he's a big dum-dum, or the Tooth Fairy's bad at their job.
And then after Corrupting the Youth, you also had Dark Side of Purity Volume 3 from Band of Bards. So that was interesting as well. That's already been published, right? Or has that not dropped yet?
It has not dropped yet. They're still working on the digital words, I believe. But me and Fern Lamb, who's also in Sparks, are going to have a 2-page comic in their Volume 3, which is like the zine that they asked for submissions for after they'd reached one of their stretch goals.
No, that is really cool. So this is kind of like your first big comic, it feels like, right? Like 20 pages, 4 different stories in one. How are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm definitely having a different experience than what I feel like I've read about, where you start your Kickstarter out and they say you have a big bunch of pledges and then it kind of dwindles away. I feel like I'm definitely having to fight every day to get 1 or 2 pledges per day. But it's starting to pick up a little. Like yesterday, I had 5 pledges, which is the most I've had any day. Even like the first day, I had 4. So I feel like I'm starting to get some momentum going. So I'm feeling really good.
So with these 4 stories, are they going to be set in a like similar universe, or how's Sparks work as like a whole?
So they're just 4 separate stories. They're not linked really in any way. But they're stories that I had either submitted to anthologies and didn't get chosen, or stories that I've already had made that I just didn't want to go in the trash bin or just be in the graveyard until I find a use for them. A lot of them also carry some personal significance to me, so I just wanted to get them out in the world and kind of get my foot in the door, just saying hey, I'm also a creator doing stuff on Kickstarter, and here's kind of what my personality is with my writing.
So do you want to give us, without spoiling too much, a little bit about these stories? What they're called, what to expect with them?
Sure. So the book's going to start off first with a 4-page story called Cleave. It's got art by Zul Vaquero, colors by Avery Bacon, and letters by Lucas Catoni. And this one, it's about 2 sisters who have met in the championship match of the Galaxy's Guilds tournament exhibition. Basically, in this story, there's a bunch of guilds, want to all demonstrate why they're the best, demonstrate their prowess. So Janice is in the Magic Guild, and Lita, the other sister, is in the Science Guild, and they're duking it out. It's supposed to be a friendly match, but you can kind of tell from the beginning, there's something maybe a little personal going on between the 2 of them. And yeah, that's good. There's going to be a big twist too, that Janice is not quite what she seems. She's gonna pull something out of her back pocket, so to say, to where she's gonna. And the story's gonna kind of explore how people can kind of be two seeming contradictory things at once,
Mhm.
and that we shouldn't like try to limit them because we say they have to be one thing or the other. And
I
then
like that. I like that deeper meaning behind it, though. Behind like just like the base, like of two sisters fighting, like the meaning of that and the representation of it. I really like that. Are the other three stories kind of going to be following like a similar like style where there's like a deeper meaning behind them as well?
Oh, definitely. One of the things I really, when I was trying to learn how to write, Alan Moore, in one of his essays for writing on comics, said that like there always should be an underlying idea behind your story, and that's kind of always how I've written. I try to have an underlying idea that influences everything because
Mhm.
it makes it more meaningful. It makes the story have more depth. I'm not opposed to stories that have a solid beginning, middle, and end, and don't necessarily have a huge moral or big idea behind them, but just me personally, that's how I like to write.
You know, I can't remember the title of it, but you shared something and I read it and I was just so blown away by it. It was recent too. It was something that you just shared and submitted. But it wasn't like, it was like a short story.
Oh yeah, the putting it all on the page. Yeah,
Yes, that was so good. I remember reading that. I'm like, dude, holy crap. Like, phenomenal.
no, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot. I've been trying to get more into writing just prose as well, just to
Hmm.
have something else in our creative outlet. But yeah, that story was a lot of fun, and it was kind of influenced by comics as well, especially the idea that when comics were first coming out, like there wasn't really word bubbles, there was word scrolls like coming out of these people's mouths, and I've seen pictures, and it just looks odd. But I wanted to have a story about a guy who's trying to imitate that, and it ends poorly for him.
So back to Sparks though.
Yeah.
We have another interesting story, Deceiving Appearances.
Right. So this one is going to be art by Fern Lamb and letters by Kevin Lentz. And this one, it was from a pitch. The original pitch was that the big twist of this story was going to be there was a video game the whole time. But I really thought that kind of took away agency from the character, and it was less interesting, and it didn't have that deeper idea that I like to throw in there.
Mhm.
But basically, yeah, this story is inspired by those gag weapons that are in video games like Soul Calibur, where you get the staff holder fighter who suddenly is fighting with a feather broom, or, I think Link in one of the Soul Calibur games, his gag weapon was the butterfly net. So, you're fighting people with a butterfly net, and they're purposely worse weapons, but they cost the most money in the game.
Mhm.
So I just had the idea, what if one of these gag weapons was actually the best weapon in the game, just from the standpoint. So this story is going to follow a warrior named Dart, and they're going to slay this big, awesome mythical beast right in the beginning. Its story starts right at the end. They're victorious. They're going to claim their prize, and their prize is an axe with blades made from butterfly wings. They're like, they're like, well, shoot, this is not what I was expecting. I can't, turn this into the person who hired me to do this job. They're going to think I didn't do the job.
Mhm.
So then they have to go back and kind of figure out how to go from here.
I'm interested too. I gotta hear the thought process when you combined an axe blade made of butterfly wings. It's like two polar, like opposite ends.
That was part of the reason too, was just because there's two things that don't seem to go together
Mhm.
that would look aesthetically pleasing. It was just mostly I looked at an axe and I was like, butterfly wings could be a blade here because they're kind of similarly shaped. But I'd also just like the visual of this like beautiful, pretty wings
Yeah.
on this hard iron pole, basically.
And we have two other awesome stories to finish off with too. So That Everlasting Peace. That's a third one, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, so that's gonna be a sci-fi romance story. I've been kind of pitching this one as it's a sapphic Princess Bride, because it's kind of follows the same format where a parent or a guardian, tells a kid a lesson through another story. So there's like two stories going on basically. But basically, a son comes up to his mother and he says, "Hey, how do you know you're in love with somebody?" And she's like, gee, that's a hard question. Let me tell you the story about Captain Rattle, who's the galaxy's best smuggler. And she has this ship named Theo. And Theo may or may not be named after her wife or lover. And just, as she's going on her adventures, the ship gets damaged. Parts have to be replaced. And by the time it's all said and done, the ship looks nothing like she had first envisioned. It's completely different. It's kind of almost a ship of Theseus type deal. And so the question that the comic explores is, can you still love something even if it looks completely different from when you started?
Wow, it's such deep concepts. And I gotta ask, how hard was it to essentially write like a story within a story? That seems like a whole different level to it.
It's what I really had to be sure of was that the narration and the caption boxes were not being repetitive. I think that's the most difficult, because you don't want a caption box telling you that Captain Rattle punched a guy and then seeing her punch a guy. Like, it's just, unnecessary information. So that's the big balance there was, trying to make sure that the mom is saying something that sounds like it would make sense if she's telling this story to her son, while also not imitating what's in the comic panels.
And like, what a deep question too for a child to ask their mother too. I mean, I know if my children asked me, I'd be like, oh, go ask your mom. Go ask someone else. Don't let me handle this one.
It's a hard question, because it's almost like too, if you start listing off the things that are the reasons you love somebody, suddenly it feels like maybe you're cheapening your love almost. Because like the real answer is, why do you love someone? Well, I love them. They make me feel loved. They make me feel happy, and then like that's basically it.
But sometimes the things you love really don't need a deep explanation either. It might come off as cheaply, but like sometimes you can't put words to it. And I think with that we have a fire of a last story. The fire went out. We were talking about this backstage. I was like so impressed. I was like, dude, I love sparks, the idea of small flames leading to a flame of passion. And then the flame went out. The fire went out. I'm like, what a perfect ending. And you're like, that wasn't intentional. I'm like, what?
No, happy accident, serendipitous, if you will. But yeah, the fire went out is basically a retelling of the myth of Prometheus, but through the lens of kind of a noir aesthetic, and having Zeus not necessarily be the all-powerful, vengeful, punishing Zeus, but kind of a more sympathetic police officer who he knows this is not the right thing that he should be doing, but it's his job. So there's kind of that conflict there, because Prometheus steals something from a convenience store, tells Zeus, this, I have to do this, like, chase me if you want. And then, Zeus is like, well, this is my job. I guess I got to chase you, even though I know it's not right.
And I really love that concept too, because even though we've heard stories of Prometheus and Zeus, I don't think I've ever heard of them doing that. Like, that is such an interesting like concept. What inspired you to kind of go that way with them?
I just kind of tried to break down the myth of Prometheus to its basic elements and see if I could tell a more personal story with it, because the myth of Prometheus is ultimately about, someone trying to help humanity, and the gods are afraid that their power is going to be taken away from them, so they punish that person who steals from them. So I wanted to take the stealing aspect, but not necessarily just the punishing, don't mess with me vibe, and more of a, more gray area, like, there's two wrongs right here, possibly, but like one of them is like kind of questionable, and one of them might be, kind of noble, even though you're breaking a law technically.
Yeah, man, holy crap, I'm like just like blown away by like how like just deep this is too. Like, is Zeus in question too, like with like him feeling like he's obligated to do this because it's his job, like not questioning if he should or not?
To a degree, yeah. Like this way, I love the art by Nicolas Moretz, who's in here, because his facial expressions, I think, really sell the idea. Like, because Zeus just in the art looks so tired. Like, he's ultimately just like, man, I've had to chase this guy so many times. I know this is wrong, but I don't really want to do it. But like, he says, like, towards the end, he's like, I've given you enough chances, and I don't want to spoil the ending, because
you're good. You're good.
But it ends, I think, really kind of, reflectively, and it's a silent page too. I think the whole ending, I don't think there's any words. It's just Zeus and the ultimate consequences of these actions.
No, that is so awesome. Everyone watching, right here is the link to back this awesome Kickstarter. We're going to be pulling this up in just a few seconds. Be sure to check this out with us. If you're unable to back, simply putting this on Twitter and Facebook is 100% free. Word of mouth is 100% free, and getting this out there for as many friends and family to see is what we're trying to do today. So let's go ahead go over to our campaign page and pull up the Kickstarter and see what the hype's all about. Speaking of that, you're also part of what, Big Hype 3 upcoming, or Big Hype 2?
Yep. Big Hype Volume 3. I believe it's going to launch in March or something like that. I know our art's due in February, and my artist Sam Prouse is like diligently working away at it right now because it's 10 pages.
No, that is so awesome. We had Doug, let's say, earlier in the year and got to break down Volume 1 and 2. So I'm excited to kind of break down 3 as well. And it's awesome that you're going to be a part of that. So we are looking at Sparks Volume 1, a short anthology of sci-fi and fantasy, emotional, action-packed comics about defying the odds and finding yourself in unexpected places. Currently at $639 of a $2,000 goal with 19 backers and 19 days left to go. Congratulations, though. You're currently at a fourth of the goal, correct?
Yeah, I'm 32%, so almost a third.
Yeah, let's go. And I always heard that last day is like the heavy hitter. I've never done Kickstarters, but I've always heard the last day is like when like most of the people like come in for whatever reason. It seems like, I don't know, like with Kickstarters, it's like a whole psychology that goes into it that you have to like study and learn and understand, and like it's just above my pay grade.
I think for a lot of people, because I mean, I used to work in sales and marketing. I think it's, that fear of missing out. You get that notification that there's 2 days left or even 8 hours left. You're like, oh, well, I want to throw $5 in just in case, it's good. And like, I don't want to, say I missed out on it.
So give us a little bit about this cover. We've talked a lot about the story. We've talked a lot about the meaning, but now that we're kind of seeing some of the art, what's kind of some of the inspiration behind the cover?
So I knew that I wanted Donna A. Black to do the cover for this because I love her art. I love her multimedia approach to everything she does. She just gets such a unique aesthetic with everything I've seen from her. And honestly, I just wanted to kind of her to let her freak flag fry, let her fleek. Oh my God. No spoonerisms.
Deep fry it, baby. Let's go.
But I just gave her the prompt. I just want it to involve fire in some way. And then this is kind of what the stories are about. And she knocked it out of the park. This is such a cool cover. The more you look at it, the more stuff you see.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. So once again, this is going to be 20 pages containing 4 short stories, written by Luke and featuring the work of 8 fantastic creators as well. Each comic in this volume centers around emotional, character-driven tales of science fiction, fantasy, and mythology. Now I'm getting tongue-tied too. Mythology, where things aren't always what they seem. And we've kind of already deep dived a little bit about the concepts, but let's go through some of these, the art. So here's Cleve, the 2 sisters, and I love these designs a lot as well. This blade looks gorgeous.
Right. That's going to be important. But yeah, I love Azul's style. One of the things they put in their bio is like that they're really inspired by like flowers and their Mexican heritage, but also like they are trans, so trans joy. And like you can feel it radiating off here. And Avery's colors also just really, put the icing on top of everything.
Gorgeous. And some of the pencil work as well.
Yeah, Azul's faces are just so expressive. I love this page already. I can't wait to get colored.
Like right here. Oh, this is good.
And that was kind of an experiment. I've done that now twice in comics where you just focus on their eyes to kind of get a just little bit of a deeper look into their emotional state. It's a thing that's a lot. You see a lot in manga, but you don't see a lot in Western comics, and so I kind of wanted to just try it out.
And the eyes are the gateway to the soul. So I mean that there's weight to that. There's that's a thing. Another like psychological thing. So here's some more from the Everlasting piece. So who do we have right here?
That is Captain Rattle. Does some of the concept art that I originally got from Lee Coligiacomo. Unfortunately, Lee was not available to do the art for the book, so I had to find another great artist. His name's Summer Steinart. So this is from our original pitch. But yeah, that's Captain Rattle. As you can see there, they are just ready to kick some ass.
And then the fire went out. This right here too. I just love how many different art styles is within this as well.
Right. I tried to have a good variety, and I really like artists who have really unique styles, and so I kind of seek them out. Nicholas has a really great sense of color and like just using different textures and whatnot. So I
Hmm.
knew I wanted him to be on this one. I found him in a Facebook group at say just saying he was looking for work, and it's worked out magnificently.
And I love From the Gods convenience store. That is just like right on the nose.
Yep, I thought that'd be a nice little Easter egg to throw in there.
That is like perfect. Holy crap. And I'm just like loving these colors too. You know, you have Zeus right there and Prometheus as well. And these colors are just gorgeous.
Right, it's mostly purple and blues, but like everything is so clear and just like I'm not an artist, so I don't know what his thought process is behind that, but it just works.
I'm like the same way. I haven't done like a lot of like comics per se, but like for like tattoos or anything like that, I'm always like, you're the artist. I trust you. Just do your thing, you know, and that you're going to kill it if I let you do your thing. So just go ahead. You got the wheel.
Absolutely.
Was there a purpose for having it being purple and blue, or was that kind of the art behind the artist?
I just said I kind of wanted it to imitate Sean Phillips' style to a degree, and
Hmm.
so that's the kind of things that he does. More so, I think his brother more than anything. But yeah, there's a lot of purple and pinks in a lot of his works, especially of Ed Brubaker.
So right here are some of the reward tiers. Once again, guys, here is the link to check out this Kickstarter with us. We have the digital for $5, a physical with the digital as well for 10, signed physical for $20, and then at 40 we have one of 3 Kickstarter exclusive prints. 75, all 3 Kickstarter exclusive prints. At 100 we have a custom hand lettering sketch, signed physical copy, digital copy, name included in the back of the book, and then 200 your likeness drawn in the book. So at 200, do they get a choice of which story, or is it kind of just randomized?
So the 2 slots I have are both for that everlasting peace. There's going to be a scene where a gang of aliens tries to aboard Captain Rattle's ship and beat
Mm-hmm.
her up, but obviously she is victorious. So if you've always had a dream of having your likeness beat up by a lesbian, there you go.
That is awesome. And then here are some of the prints as well.
Yep, right now, unfortunately, I only have one that is ready for display, but the other 2 are forthcoming. They're all going to be a similar style. They're just going to be the characters and poses with
Mm-hmm.
a like plain color background. So you get where you can just have a nice set that looks like they all feel the same and they feel
Mm-hmm.
like they fit together.
And then, so the next one will be Dart from Deceiving Appearances.
Yep.
And then we have Captain Rattle from the Everlasting Peace.
Yeah.
And then here is a custom hand lettered sketch as well. So is this a recipe?
Yeah, so that's for a zine that I did with the Comic Jam, where our theme was effed up foods from your childhood. So it starts off as a normal mac and cheese recipe, but then it gets really wacky. But this is just something I've kind of just done as a hobby, where I've tried to do some hand lettering, and
Mm-hmm.
I ink and color them myself with just a ballpoint pen and markers. And so that's something I've offered. I originally had 3, and they have all been swooped up. I'm considering adding a couple more, but I've not decided yet.
Mm-hmm. And then here are some of the add-ons as well. How was it? So your first dive was a pretty prominent IP. Did you feel like any pressure, like when writing your story for this?
Oh, definitely. Because I mean, the movie has been around for 100 years. There's a
Mm-hmm.
big fan base. People know and love this movie. So, yeah, definitely was worried about doing something a little too different.
And then the corrupting the youth as well. I think that's when I met you. Like came into it at least is when you were running the campaign for this.
Yeah, yeah. I was definitely probably more involved in that campaign than I need to be, because our editor Leo was the one who was running everything and like launched the Kickstarter, but I just really wanted to get it funded.
You know, the thing is, people see that they see who on their team is shouting it out the loudest. So I think that is, you know, really important that you're putting that work in. Real quick before we wrap this up, do you want to give a shout out to your creative team once again? I know we kind of named them with their stories, but since we're here right now.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can name them all without forgetting somebody. So yeah, my cover artist, Donna A. Black. Love her work. Go back anything she works on. My artist team for Cleve, Azul Vaquero, Avery Bacon, and Lucas Catoni. Then for Deceiving Appearances, Fern Land and Kevin Lintz. That everlasting piece is Summer Steinhardt, and a letterist who goes by the moniker Ray Day. I haven't got to talk about Ray Day. I'm sorry, I forgot about them. But yeah, Ray Day, go check out their stuff on Webtoons. They are an artist as well as a letterer, and they've got just a really cool style. I thought it would fit well with kind of the more manga style I'm looking for in that comic.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Lee Collegiacomo, who did the character and ship designs for that comic. And then lastly, the fire went out, Nicholas Merez and my letterist, Matt Krotzer. If you've been around the indie space, you've probably heard of Matt, but the rest is history.
All right, and then here is a little pie chart of where the funds will go for anyone that is interested in seeing this as well. Once again, here is the link to check out this Kickstarter. If you can't back, simply putting it on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that you can put text is 100% free. Word of mouth is 100% free, and it's one of the most effective ways of advertising. So tell your friends about this, get on the rooftops, and shout it out loud. And with that being said, let's go ahead and head back to our original screen. Luke, after going through your Kickstarter, what would you like to say to anyone who might be on the fence about backing?
Just, I know if you're an international backer, I know that shipping can be absolutely daunting. That's why I got a special going for this campaign. Whatever tier you back at, I will automatically bump you up. So that way, at least your money might feel a little more worth it. Because again, I know those shipping prices are disgusting when you have to ship overseas. Just if you're interested in really emotional, character-driven sci-fi and fantasy and supporting an up-and-coming writer, I'd love to have you support the campaign.
Yeah, let's go. That's such an awesome way to kind of give back to your international audience as well. Because shipping is like, for whatever reason, they don't want you to ship your product out. I don't get it. I don't understand. UPS, if you're listening, United States Postal, if you're listening, please work with us. Like,
definitely. I remember having to ship a package to Mexico years ago, and I still don't know if it ever got there.
It probably cost quadruple what the item was worth, right?
Yeah, it was a book, and it cost me, I think, $25 to ship it.
That is, and I don't know. It has to be customs, like the fact that it has to get checked through someone. I don't know what it is, but
I don't know.
Man, it is just wild. So, Luke, after Sparks, what is next for you? Like, any projects on the horizon that you're working on or looking forward to?
Well, as we talked about, Project Big Hype Volume 3 gonna be launching on Kickstarter, so we're gonna work on getting that funded. I'm also in an anthology called Comics from the Kitchen that's gonna be all short comics with recipes. I got one that may involve pirates that are maybe swimming in a sea of eggs in a bacon ship. And then I would love to get Sparks Volume 2 published next year. I've got plans to have shorter comics so that way I can have more art teams, and that way it's going to be the same length but kind of bigger in scope. So
you mentioned more art teams. What's some of your motivation for trying to get as many different artists as possible?
Kind of to just check off the boxes of people whose work I love and I've been wanting to work with for a while. I figure it's a lot easier to get them to, have time in their schedule if they're just working on a 2-page comic, and that way we can, start making some connections, and I can, hopefully, help each other grow as artists.
I like that. That is some smart thinking and planning ahead. Luke, this has been one hell of a show. I appreciate you coming on, breaking down Sparks Volume 1 and everything in between. Before we wrap up things officially, though, I always love ending the show on a strong note, and that is asking for a little bit of advice. So for anyone who might be new listening, what type of advice would you have for them just getting started out and getting motivated to go?
Well, for a Kickstarter, if we're talking about advice, just planning ahead is key. I used to be a marketing editor for a small independent publisher, and the work that you put in months before you actually launch the thing is just going to make everything so much easier. So, trying to figure out your budget, trying to figure out, when you're going to post things, where you're going to post them, and like how you're going to reach out to people is key. You should be doing that before the book is finished, but definitely before you launch it. As far as getting involved writing, honestly, just read a bunch. I know that's probably advice people hear a lot, but I can't stress enough. Read a bunch, read stuff that's good or bad. You'd be amazed how much you can learn from a book that you absolutely hate.
No, that is awesome. And I think it is really sound advice too, because reading more helps you kind of take in the different writing styles, the different techniques, the different routes you can go. You learn a little bit with each book you read.
Right, and the more you read and the more you're like actively thinking about the books, the more you can see what you like and what you don't like, and that's kind of where you develop your voice.
Absolutely. Holy crap. Luke, thank you so much for swinging by, everyone watching, here is that link one more time. Be sure to check it out and share it if you can't back it. With that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.